Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Low Code Café. And I've already made my first mistake of the year. This is January 8th, 2025, but it's episode number 178. Today, we are going to deal with talking about reusing and adapting web forms and listings by reusing them. And so we'll explore that. I am Dale Warner, head of support for Plant an App, and let's dive in. Low Code Cafe is an event that we do bi-weekly on Wednesdays. It's our team and community webinar where we share about updates and demonstrations and spend the most of our time on hands-on coding or hands-on low coding. If you have a low-code system that you've developed with us, we'd be honored to host you on this event and show off what you've put together and demonstrate what's possible with low code. We record all these and put them on YouTube at youtube.com/plantanapp. So there's 177 hours of good community, good previous training webinars. Our agenda today, I'm going to dive right into our From the Trenches of Support segment and then spend the bulk of the time on hands-on low coding. We encourage you to engage with us. You can use the chat window or the question and answer. Or you can raise your hand and talk, or after it's all over with, there's a link to our feedback form and we'll make sure that you get that. This, again, it's presented bi-weekly, so the next live webinar will be on January 22nd, topic to be announced. From the trenches of support, um, we're currently on version 1.26. It was released in June of 24, and the hot fixes are something that we'll talk about today. And I want to mention that 1.26 is the only version in the official support until window. So if you're not on version 126, we encourage you to upgrade. Version 127 is targeted to go into beta this month, so we'll be moving on to that and talking more about that in the weeks to come. So let's take a look at the hot fixes. I have an application here that I only use for installing hot fixes. We have three hot fixes present since the last time that we got together. There is a bug fix to the app builder, and so this is for clients that that have Plant an App installed in a virtual directory that in one of our recent releases we were not properly handling all the paths for virtual directories. So, for example, going to the configuration menu that people using virtual directories weren't able to get access to all of the features because of the way we were handling paths. So we fixed that. So this is only required. It won't hurt you if you don't use virtual directories, but this is only required for people who use virtual directories. So that's one bug fix. Another is that, and it shows up as a feature in listings, but it's actually a feature just this is a general feature when you use the server request action. In the past, the HTTP method was blank, and going forward, it's going to default to get. When it was blank, the first until you figured it out and filled it in with something, the server request action would throw an error. So we're just trying to keep it from throwing an error. We'll do a get, and then if the API that you're calling doesn't, if get isn't the appropriate method, you'll see an appropriate error message. So this is just a little thing that will help you come more quickly to the right configuration of server request. And then the page builder skin, if you're using our page builder theme, this is a nice feature where we now have a pane up in the top right where that you'll be able to add things, add content directly to it. Very useful for things like a notification, alarm bell kind of an icon. So that's nice. And then there's a pane that has 50% of the screen to the left, 50% to the right, and that's useful for side-by-side layouts. So very simple enhancements, but I think they're good ones. And as we usually do, I'm going to make sure that this site hasn't gone to sleep on me before I go forward. And then we'll set up to install these hotfixes so that they're gone for our next time. And but we won't hang around and test them out. We'll just install them and move on. Okay. So I'll check that I want all of them, install the selected hotfixes, and say yes, and that will go on while we go on to other things. All right. Um, so I mentioned our support until window on our documentation in the compatibility um, on the compatibility page under important notes. We show all of our previous versions, when they were released and when they're supported until. So we typically do a 1 year support window. So 1.26 is the supported item. We won't, we're not refusing support for earlier versions, but we do encourage you to upgrade, um, stay current with us, and that makes it possible to support you well. Okay, moving on. We encourage you to join our other meeting that's a weekly meeting, Low Code Campfire. We do that this same hour, 10 a.m. Central Time. It's a 1 hour meeting, and this is an opportunity to just converse with other low code professionals and get solutions to things that you might be facing, or maybe help out your fellow community members. So do engage with us on that one. You don't have to talk, but it is a great group. Um, and so you can sign up for that. There'll be Patrick perhaps will post that in the chat here in a minute. Because we have the links for the episodes, where to sign up for Campfire, how to get to our webinar recordings, the community portal. If you haven't explored it, that's a great one to check into, because you can post to our forum and get answers not just from us, but from your community members as well. And then there's that form if you want to give us feedback about this webinar. Okay, made it through all that in 7 minutes, so we can go on to hands-on low coding. Updating made easy, reusing and adapting web forms and listings that are automatically created for you. So let's go into that. This is the overview of what we're going to do today. That we'll talk about the setup that's already in place on our site. I want to talk about the core, this existing module functionality, because it's a core feature of DNN, being able to reuse things, and I want to just touch on that, and then we'll get into how it can be used for plant and app modules. I'll show you an example of how it is used, and then we'll spend the majority of our time in that green area where we'll do a walkthrough of exactly how you can reuse modules. As time permits, we'll go on to considering the pros and the cons of reuse versus non-reuse, and then what are the alternatives to that, and if you have any questions. So that's where we're headed today. So in terms of setup, I have on the site where we're going to be doing all of our work, I've already created a couple of pages. It's a otherwise empty plant and app system, but it has an About Us page and a system data page that have nothing on them. That's just a setup. I created a standard user, that if we get into testing as different personalities, either as a standard user or as a not logged in user, you can see uh, perhaps different functionalities. So that's available. And then I changed the home page permission to all users so everyone can see the site. So that's the setup that I've done in advance. And now we can start getting busy. DNN has this existing module functionality where the same module can be used in multiple places. So instead of adding an HTML HTML module to one page and then adding a different one to another page. Maybe you have one that you want to say the same thing. So rather than talking about it, let's just demonstrate it. Let me find this is the site I was talking about. So we have this About Us page and the system data page and a home page. So perhaps on our About Us, we want to add an HTML telling when or telling what we do or when we were established. So we'll say we'll add a little bit of style to that in a big font so everyone can read it and save it. So you've seen an HTML module get created before. There it is. I am going to edit this for my purposes. I want to show off that we can use tokens as well. It might come into play later. There's a token tab name that says the name of your page. Um, Notice that it doesn't resolve. There's a setting that you need to do in HTML modules to turn that on. So HTML module settings, replace tokens, update. So now we have this nice About Us page that has our message about great company since 1983. And notice this now says About Us. This is the name of the page and it's being rendered into here. So that's kind of fun. That might, as I say, point out to be useful. So now this existing module functionality, if we go to the home page and we want to have the same message appearing somewhere here on this page, we could create a new HTML module and put it there, but now they need to be maintained separately. If you use the add existing module functionality, you can say that you want one from the About Us page, and it'll show you the name of that module. I didn't give it a nice name, so it's just showing the default enter title as the name of the module. Tell you what, I can't stand that, so let's go back and clean it up. So we have our About Us page. This is our settings and module settings. It's got enter title. We'll call this the great company message. So now we've given this module a name and now it'll make a little bit more sense. So we come over to the home page into edit mode, add existing module. The module we want is from the About Us page, and now we see great company message. Before we click this though, I am going to uncheck make a copy. So instead of making a copy, it's just going to place the exact same message, exact same HTML, and I'm going to put it here just to show it doesn't have to go into a page. And notice now that it has this same message is now showing home. That's because we're on the home page, and if we're on the About Us page, it's showing that. So it's the same message, but slightly different because it's rendering a token. If we make a change, and let's say we've made this shows the simplification of maintenance. If we made a mistake and it's actually been around since 1993, we can change it in one place. So that's on the home page. But if we go to the About Us page, it's got the same change. It is, in fact, the same module being rendered in two different places on your site. So that's the concept. Let me make sure. Oh, yes. So other things that accordion and features that are useful for you to know is that if you look at the settings, well, before I even do that, notice that when you do the hover, this black label says it's a shared module and the name of it. So that's useful. You can now tell that's not a standard module, it's a shared module, and that it appears on many pages. When you have shared modules, one of the important things, it's important to know that if you make changes to one, it's going to make changes every place that that module is used. You can find out where it's used by going to settings and looking in the module settings added to pages. And if it's shared, it'll tell you where else. So we've accessed this from the um, About Us page, and it's telling us that there's one on the home page. Likewise, if we go to the home page and look at the settings, it's telling us that there's one on the About Us page. And DNN will support adding that module to as many pages as you care, although you can only add it to each page once. So that's how you can know where it's in use. So just running through my plan here, we created a message, we've turned on replace tokens, um, got it on the home page, changes to impact both. And then we showed you how to find it. And I'll just mention that module properties are independent of the content. So the module, I can um, change the permissions or the page set. I can change the permissions for something, or even change the title of it, or the advanced settings, and that will stay with that module only, with that rendering of the module. So just be aware that module settings is different from um, the content of the module. Okay. So that's kind of the introduction, the core DNN feature. So let's go on and take advantage of that. I've prepared an example of how you can use an existing module, and our scenario is this. We have a ratings entity where we want to store comments and ratings. We're going to get a default maintenance page that's going to allow full add, change, and delete capabilities to ratings. So our behind the scenes data maintenance page will be there. But then we want to also have a public page that lets people add their comments and view comments and ratings, and maybe be able to change their own record. And so that's our scenario. We have two different uses for the same data, and we want to reuse the functionality. So I'm going to show you an example of this reuse where the listing, when you're looking at the system data page, it shows more records and more columns and more filtering, uh, and that the form prompts everything, versus our About Us rating page shows limited, uh, the listing shows limited fields, and the form only prompts some. So let's see that. I'm going to put them side by side here, um, so that we can see what this looks like. Uh, that's not it. All right, so mm, harder than you think to get them side by side. So we have this maintenance page from under system data. It has three different records, and as compared to the same, these are the same listing, by the way, but it's giving different results. So the public one only shows those that are have an is public property of true. It doesn't show the is public column or the category column. And if we say that we want to do a new record, see, this site has now gone to sleep. Oh, so if you're on the About Us page, you only get the ability to say that you want a title and a rating and a comment, versus if you're on the maintenance page, you also get access to the category and the reply and the is public. But the function, again, these are the exact same modules, and just doing different duty, and that's what we're going to cover today, how to do that. To show off that, let me do this. We're going to go to the configuration page here. And to show off that these are, in fact, the exact same things, if I go to my entities and look at my rating data, let's say I add a new field. And I'm going to say that we'll have a property called that it has passed review. And the property, and that's going to be a Boolean property. And we'll just add it as is and merge these changes. And we'll be talking about this a little bit more, but there is a known limitation with our listings modules that when you change a listing, in order to get it to propagate to all of the different copies, you need to do a clear cache. We're working on solving this limitation, but you need to know that. So now, having done that, we look at our data maintenance page and we can see that it has this new field, past review. And if we do a new record, it has this new field, past review. We haven't positioned it, but it's done it for us. In the same way, this other page has the past review functionality, and it appears in the form. So these forms that do completely different things, this is one of the reasons why you might want to use this shared module functionality, that changes that you make at the entity level can still get merged into the form, and then you can tweak it and tune it to do the thing that you want it to do. Okay, so that's an example of where we're going. I'm going to shut that down, and this is what we are going to accomplish in our work today. So let's get started on doing that. We're going to create an entity and then review what automatically gets created just by default. So with that, and sticking with our resolution not to bore you with watching us create an entity, I'm going to export this prepared one from my system, and we will import it, and then I'll just talk about it. So we go to entity and import. Now we'll see what we get. So we have a rating data entity. It has our properties. I'm going to start out without this past review thing that I just added. We'll come back in and prove that that works here in a little while. But we have our properties. As we look at the general tab, I don't want this to appear on the parent page, so I'm going to change it to appear on the system data page. And we have some permissions that we are set up. These are a little different than the default. So anybody who's a user in the system can see all of the ratings. Anybody who's not a user, just an unauthenticated user, can see all entries. Users can edit their own. They can't delete anything. They can add things. So we have a little bit of permissions in play. So let's save those and merge the changes. So when we create an entity, we told it to put it under system data. We get some default assets. We have a listing that shows all of them. We have a form that is so we have the ability to create a new record, to edit a record. All this is built for us automatically by Plant an App, just from the creation of the entity. Let's add another record that is not public. We have one that's true, one that's false. So we have this core functionality. Well, let's take a look. The core functionality is visible here. Notice we have a rating data records listing. It's not showing up as a shared module. We have this rating data form. The form that does entry is a shared module because it's shared with our, when you're on the detail page, we have this ability to edit. We're already using this as a shared module. So instead of creating, we're taking advantage of this functionality when we build the assets for you initially. Go back to our rating data records here. So we have these. We're going to focus today on this listing, the rating data records listing, rating data form, and these are the ones that we're going to reuse. If we were to look at them, they have, for example, the listing gets its has been built to get its data from the rating data records. It has displayed all the columns as data fields. It's built some buttons like add and delete, excuse me, edit and delete, root buttons to add or export. And so all this functionality is built in core. And so again, for our scenario, this has given us a great maintenance page, but we want to publish this under our About Us page, for example, to and only show the things we want to show and prompt the things that we want to prompt in that context. So that's what we're going to build. All right, enough talking, let's do it. The About Us page doesn't have a ratings subpage yet, and that's what I want to do. So I'm going to go to Pages, and if we look at the pages that are created have been created, the About Us page will go into it, and we'll create a new page called Ratings. I'm going to make this visible to everyone can see it, and only our developer roles can edit the page. So we'll create this page, and so now when we refresh, we have a ratings page that's empty, a nice blank slate where we can put this thing. All right, I'm going to step back to what we're doing, my walkthrough. We've created the entity, we've reviewed what's automatically been created for us, and now we're going to go on to add an existing module with make a copy unchecked, and then we're going to see that they have identical functionality and begin our revisions. So we have this blank slate, we open up edit mode. I'm going to get rid of this empty thing that's automatically created for us by every time a page gets created. We don't need that. And so now we're going to add an existing module. It's coming from the system data page. Nope, it's coming from the system data rating data records page. And so we can see there's a header, there's a listing, and there's a form. I'm going to uncheck make a copy because I don't want it to be a duplicate. I want it to be the exact one. So it's a little fuzzy on this functionality, but if you select make a copy, it's going to get a new one that's different from the old one. I want to have one that's identical to the old one that's actually the same module. We'll place the listing and we'll place it here on this page. And note right away, we're already seeing duplicate functionality. It's looking at our entity, displaying all the content. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the rating data form. And once this form is on the page, I can put that anywhere. It's invisible. It's a pop-up, so it doesn't show up. But once it's on the page, we now have exact same functionality. We can title, category, rating, comments. We can add a record here, but we can add, it's not limited yet, and we can see whatever's there. So exactly the same functionality. So now we're ready to start customizing. once we've dropped them on there. So now the key to the customization is that you want to do things so that when it's in one context, it does one thing. When it's in a different context, or different page in this case, it does another thing. Now you could change you make your customizations based on other things like what the role or the user or any differentiator that you want. But in my case, all I want to do is say if this form shows up on one page or this listing shows up on one page, it doesn't need these extra fields. So we're going to hide certain records based on the tab name, or hide columns based on the tab name. We'll hide buttons based on the tab name. That's possible. I don't know if we'll get to that today, but so let's see how that works out. We're on the About Us page, and so we can, excuse me, we're on the About Us ratings page, and so that tab name is the word ratings, and so we can test for that. Um, So let's do the first one. We'll hide this is public column when we're on the ratings page. Here, I'm going to get set up for that. Um, so I'm going to open our listing and begin modifying it. Again, we need to always keep in mind that we're working on a shared module. Whatever we do has to work in both contexts. So we'll get that done. How we're going to do this is on the is public. On the field condition, this is saying whether or not to hide the entire column. Um, and so what we're going to do is say if the tab name is not equal to ratings, this will be true. So it's going to show up on everything except ratings. But when it's um, when it's ratings, this value will be tab name not equal to ratings. On the rating, when the tab name is ratings, this value will be false, and the result will be the column will be hidden. So let's see this in action. Before we go on, I told you that anytime we make a change to a shared listing, we have to clear the cache, and so I'm just going to stick with that. So notice now that the is public field does not show when we're on About Us. If I go to the ratings data records, is public, whoops, is public does show. So we have the same listing, but we're getting different behavior. And that's exactly what we were trying for. In the same way, it's okay for people who are on our ratings page to see the reply if there is one, and the comments and the rating, but we don't want them to see categories. So we're going to make that same change. And I'm just going to do a little copy and paste here. That same functionality on the category so that they don't see that. And sticking with my clear cache so that we don't get into trouble. So now category and is public is not visible. But if we go to ratings data, it's still, in this context, everything still shows. And so it's exactly what we want. So that's the first objective we were trying, well, doing it out of order here, but one of the objectives, we hit columns based on the tab name. So now let's go do the other one that's a little bit more complex. We're going to hide records based on the tab name. It's not that complex, but it does require a little bit of thinking. So here we go. So we're back to our ratings. And the idea is that we only want to show the ones that are public. So our maintenance page is going to control whether or not it's public. Our non-maintenance page will only show the ones that are already public. So we can accomplish this by adding a where clause. And the where clause is going to have two parts. One part is if the tab name is ratings, and another part if it's not ratings. So it goes something like this. If the tab name equals, this is a SQL expression here, so it's just the equal sign. Tab name is ratings. We want to do one thing, so we want to say and is public one. So this handles the first half of this. Oops, syntax here, got to have a closing quote. So if the tab name equals ratings and it's public, the record will show. And I'm going to put parentheses around this because then we'll have the other condition, which is if the tab name is not equal to ratings, then it shows everything. So one or the other of these conditions will be operational based on the tab name. And so you're going to get different results. If it's the tab name is ratings, it's going to force looking at only the public records. If the tab name is not ratings, then everything gets included. All right, so let's test this out. So we see when we're looking at the About Us ratings page that we're only seeing the public ones and the non-public ones are hidden. If we go to our maintenance page, we see everything. And if we, for example, we can change the public property and that controls whether or not something gets seen. All right, so this has given us these first two objectives are done. We'll punt for a little while on whether or not we're going to hide buttons, but we'll get into that a little later, depending on time. So now we're halfway there. The form is showing only the records and only the columns that we care about when it's on the public form. But if we say we want to do a new record, it turns out that they have access to category and is public, or if they have the ability to edit a record, again, they have access to these and can change them. And that's not what we want to do. We're reserving for a maintenance page. So that's our next step. We've got to get the form in line with our goals for the page. There's several ways. Again, this is a one particular scenario. You're going to want to think through what you want to do, but I'm going to show you one technique that can do this uh, that works. So, and then it's not the only way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close down this view of the listing administrative screen and open up the ratings data form, and we'll start making some customizations here. So what we want to do, we want the is public and the category to not appear on the form if if it's on the ratings page. And I'm going to accomplish that by going to add a hidden field with a custom value, and I'm going to name this pretty uniquely. You'll see. Hopefully, this will make sense when we get there. But I'm going to call it the hide if comments tab. So this is something that we're going to set, and this is it. Follow along with me. Hide if comments tab is the name of something that I'm going to create. This is going to get created in our events, and the way that we're going to create it is this. We're going to do a create update token, and we're going to add a value to it, and the value is going to be some CSS. The thing that makes this work is our same kind of logic that we've been doing earlier. We're going to say if the tab name is ratings, then it's going to get this value. So when the tab is ratings, hide if comments tab is going to have the CSS that says, well, we want to hide it. It'll have display none. If it's not the ratings page, this is not going to work, and so hide if comments tab is going to have a blank value. And so one way or another, it's either going to have this CSS that hides things or it won't have anything. So now we can use hide if comments tab in the UI for these fields we want to hide. So is public UI settings, we can come into the styles and we can say hide if comments tab. And that's why I named it that way. I wanted it to be pretty clear what we were doing. So if this is the comments tab, it's going to have the value of display none. So the label and the control is going to get hidden. Same way, we're going to do the same thing to category. And so these two things are going to get hidden, and if not. Now notice I'm not going to do clear cache. We don't have the same problems with forms that we do with listings, so we don't have to clear the cache. So here we are on our About Us ratings page. The things that we wanted to hide, we need to hide reply too. We'll do that in a second, but our is public and our category got hidden as desired. So let's also hide reply. They don't get to reply to their own comment. And it's just as simple as applying this same style. All right. So now they get title and rating and comments, and good to go. When we view this same page, when we view our maintenance page, it's the same module, and yet it doesn't hide all those things. So because the logic goes down the other path, the rating, the page name is not ratings. It applies a blank CSS, which results in it being shown. So on our revisions to the form, kind of following along the map that I'd planned here, and update the correct. I changed my mind on what we kind of call this, but we created a hidden field called hide if comments, and we hide the fields based on UI. So now, just for cleanup and for fun, we go back to the About Us ratings page and look at the same ratings form. Maybe this rating is more fun as a instead of a number, maybe we'll make it be stars, so we can make it be single chart, single choice star rating. And they can have up to 5 stars with a step of 1 star for each. We don't need to set anything else. And so now when we make a new item, I guess I have to refresh there. When we make a new item, it renders as stars. If we edit an item, the stars are there. And that also applies on our maintenance page as well. It's the exact same functionality. So we see our stars.
Dale, just
Yes.
wanted to put out a question. Maybe somebody else might have the thought too. Was there a specific reason why you decided to go with the display none CSS as opposed to the show conditions on the fields?
Uh, there is. And it's, but it is a great question. And display none has its own set of limitations and reasons why that might be problematic. So yes, I'll explain. If we could have in our bind expressions chosen to show or hide the field based on that same kind of condition, what the page name was. The problem is that when you submit a page um, that has um, that when it's hidden, the value doesn't appear um, in the it doesn't get submitted with the form. So now um, p is public would have no value and would actually so now you have to account for that and in your add or change
Mm,
where you're saying uh, create a new rating data. We have this p is public value being used, and it wouldn't have a value at all, and it's going to render as bracket p is public bracket, which is an invalid value for um, a numeric field or a Boolean field. I'm sorry.
so it adds complexity to the setup, basically, is
Correct. I
yeah,
went with
yeah,
it as simple
yeah.
as a
Hmm.
scenario as possible. But if in your scenario, if you did not want to use display none, if you don't want that to appear in the, I mean, we've kind of visually hidden it, but a sophisticated user could hack the form and provide a value for those things and maybe go around what you intended. So if you really truly wanted to hide it, you could add complexity in this logic to say, well, when we're to account for the fields that are missing, but
Yeah.
either way, it adds complexity.
You could do add a condition that runs a partially update action instead of this action on this page or something like that. Yep.
Exactly. So now
Yeah.
you would have two create. You would have instead. Well, you'd have a create new
Yeah.
uh, that and two different ones. One that would run um, if it's
Right.
if it is the page A, and another if it's the page B.
Yep.
Um, Mark points out there is a submit hidden fields in the form settings,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure that submit hidden fields um, uh, handles non-shown fields. I'm not certain, but anyway, it's something that it's certainly workable. I tried the path of least resistance in using CSS to hide it,
Sure.
and of course you have to account for it on the update side as well. So this this again was just kind of keeping it the minimum level of complexity to explain the problem. But a good question. Okay, um, so we've kind of gotten our functionality. So let's dive into some of the permission-based things for a couple of minutes, and maybe this first one that let's say in our one very common scenario would be that nobody gets to edit a comment once it's posted. Actually, let's review what we've gotten done. So this is a um, comment, great product is the name of it. We've got a 5-star rating, and now I remember what's next. When we do this and we say add, it says your data was saved. But the problem is it doesn't show up here on the listing because it's not approved. It defaults to unapproved, and until somebody comes in and uh, maybe they're going to add a category or not, but they say a reply and make it public, and so now the public page has this thing, but it doesn't show up immediately. So that's a little bit of lack of feedback to the user. So there's a simple thing that we can do about that when they're adding. We can add a toast. We'll do a toast and continue and put it right before the end. Toast message is a nice little pop-up. And So we'll say whatever messaging we want to get. Saying this is a perfect scenario, but that's what we're going to do. Saved. We'll make it green, and it can be closed at any time. We'll make it show up for 10 seconds, and I like things right middle center where people can see them. And so now the functionality is a little bit nicer uh, when they do a new bit more reform here in the comments. Uh, and so now we get a little bit more of a positive confirmation that they can kind of understand why they didn't see it. And so now it'll appear. Same logic applies. Somebody has to go in and prove it, but at least they understand. So that was a small little nuance just to uh, make a little bit more sense. And yet, if a admin is doing that, oop, so my logic is this could be conditionalized as well. So um, that name equal to this is only going to show up if you're on the ratings tab hitting save. So you get a different experience um, as an end as a manager. We're in here on our rating data records, and we make a fake comment, fake rating, and it doesn't show that success message. It stays with the default success message we had previously. So um, you get a different experience depending on which one. So you can do different things in your actions, and just to expand on that logic. If you're uh, when somebody does a rating, perhaps you want to send them a thank you email. And so you could test, am I on this page? Then I'm going to do this logic, which includes sending an email. If I'm on the maintenance page, we don't do that, or vice versa. So you can differentiate the experience between the two, and yet uh, still keep to one listing and one form.
And also, not to, I'm not trying to complicate, I'm just trying to mention all the possibilities, as you could even do a customization to the data source so that it will show the user their submitted record before it's public. So other users wouldn't see it, but the user who's logged in could see their submitted one as soon as
Ab-
they submit it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, So let's kind of go back to our original scenario. If we have let's edit the rating data and add that field that I dropped away. Um, so that's passed as a Boolean. Save that. So this is going to illustrate that this both that we'll do our clear cache here. Illustrate that these things are shared. So we're looking at our system data. We now have a past review field. If we edit, we have a past review checkbox, and we can update, and it gives us a true or false. And if we go to our ratings page, it has past review, and it appears here also when we're doing a new record. So this illustrates that they're linked, and part of the complexity when you're dealing with a linked or a shared asset, it has to work in all the contexts. So when you make a change, you need to think about, well, where all is this used, and what actions do I need to take? So in this case, um, on our About Us page, we don't want the past review. So now we're going to have to repeat some of these things that we did before. So we need to hide, do this same hide provision on past review. And so it won't show on that page. And in the same way, on our rating form, the same, we'll use the same logic to prevent them from, and I'm stealing here, just a little copy and paste, but in the past review, we'll use the same UI logic to keep them from being able to show their review has been completed as they're entering data. So that's part of the deal. You gotta maintain. I think um, I'm going to go on to kind of things that I prepared so that we can close this out. So the idea is, we did this. We revised the listings, we revised the form, we're sharing it and using it in multiple places. So there's pros and cons, and on the pros, there's efficiency, right? If you reuse modules, you don't need to build things from scratch. It, from a consistency standpoint, if you start rearranging columns or adding logic, that logic all is in one place, so it gives you consistency. We just demonstrated automatic updates. If you change the underlying entity, the forms, all the assets, the forms, the listings are all updated automatically. And then that uh, you have simplified maintenance, meaning if you want to change something, you've got one place to go to and do your bug fixes or enhancements. But there are cons, reasons why you wouldn't want to do that, and we've kind of touched on this, the complexity and customization. If the module has to serve multiple purposes, you have to make sure that it's right for all of the different contexts, like different pages or different users or roles or whatever it is that you're going to differentiate. And so the thing that, as you, the thing that Patrick mentioned, for example, being able to uh, allow users to display their own records, that just adds complexity to the SQL statement. It's doable, but it adds complexity. So it's one of the reasons why you might not want to use the shared functionality. Um, and then it's kind of the same thing, saying it a different way. This limitations and flexibility. You might not be able to do one module be all things to all uses, and so depending on what you're trying to accomplish, I mean, the most simple scenario is you want it to work exactly the same. You just want it to be on different pages for whatever reasons of convenience. In our scenario, we wanted to have some small amount of difference, but the more differences that you want, it might become not possible to do it or very difficult. And then this idea of dependency management, you have to know all the different places that a module is used. We showed you how you can see where it's used, the core DNN functionality to see added to pages. But you've got to just, as a developer, be aware that it's a shared module and do that. So then, and there's probably others, but these are the top ones, pros and cons. And then it's just worth mentioning the alternatives that we unchecked the make a copy button or checkbox so that we're getting a shared module. You can use the make a copy and leave the checkbox checked. That gives you a duplicate of the module that you started with, but as a carbon copy, or it's it's it is not a duplicate. Excuse me, it is a duplicate, but not shared. So as you make changes to one, they don't impact the other. So that's another way to save time. If you have a listing that you want to use for a different purpose, and you um, use the make a copy functionality, you can just start customizing away, realizing that that module is now not going to get changes done on the other on other like if the entity changes or if you change um, changes that you make there are local only to that area. So, and if you think about that, one of the common things that you have is to have a button or a button that has a lot of logic behind it in a listing. If you do that, and that's what I'm saying, this duplicate logic thing, if you have an action stack, a stack of actions that maybe, whether it's one thing or 10 actions deep, and you make a copy, now you have 10 actions in your original form, 10 actions um, in your copied form, or I'm saying form listing, and that if the logic that that's those two action stacks are now completely copied and different. And so if your business case changes and you need to add more actions or change actions or do different things, change the wording of an email, anything that is behind those actions, now you have multiple places that you need to remember to fix that. So that's kind of a concern when you're making a copy. And if you use workflows instead of action stacks, then that might counter the issue a little bit. And then you can always do from scratch. You just start building your own listing instead of making a copy. It has the functionality that you build into it and nothing more. So that gives you full control and full responsibility. We've made it to our hour. If there's any questions, that's happy to entertain them. Thanks for joining us. I hope it's added value to you, and we'll put this into our Low Code Café playlist for anyone wanting to come behind and learn about shared modules and how to get started with this. I see no questions. So, but if you have any, there is an alternative. Come to Low Code Campfire on Friday, and we'll be happy to take it up. Thanks for joining and spending this hour with us, and we will be back again in 2 weeks.